Welcome to Your Awakening, a collection of life stories told by heart-centered, passionate women on a mission to live our truth. We hope you gain peace and strength through each conversation, as together we will raise the vibration of the world, one journey at a time. Hey everyone! Coming at you today with another dear soul sister, Lindsay. This woman is powerhouse, you guys. I'm so excited to get a deep dive of like an overview of everything that we're putting on our body and how it can affect us from the outside in. She is a former environmental engineer, and now she coaches people on how to engineer your life, live a life by design. And she also is works with Beautycounter. And I don't know, there's so much more. I feel I don't want to.
I'm thoroughly impressed with that intro. I don't know if I have much more to add to that.
Did I miss anything? What's happening?
That's essentially it. I think my new path found me, and we'll kind of get into that a little bit more, but it had to kind of do with, I feel like it's usually some sort of traumatic event or some huge life event or experience or something either positive or negative that can potentially just move your life in a different direction. And that's what happened for me. So I'm taking the tools that I've learned with my environmental and engineering background and applying it to my new path, which is in the health and wellness path. And it's all about the mind-body connection, a lot of what I do, which is why Jill and I became very good friends right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited to have you because that's kind of what this series is all about, your awakening. And we all have that moment, I like to say, where it's like, bam, you're hit with a 2x4. And that's kind of the feeling. That's how the feeling was for me. And that's just it, is like we each have a different journey. And so I'm excited to get to talk about this and open up your path for all of our listeners today.
Absolutely. I'm excited.
Thanks for being here. Yeah.
Of course.
So first things first, young Lindsay, little Lindsay. I always love to start with like our little girl selves because it's just so imperative to like keep that spirit alive. So what did you dream about? What was your like fire?
I just love this because the more that I'm kind of coming into my own as my own business owner and just my new path, my parents always joke all the time about how I came into this world. So I was actually late, 2.5 weeks late, and I didn't want to come out. And they actually induced my mom. And then immediately I wanted to come into this world. And so I came into this world like this fiery ginger, ready to explore the world. And my mom always jokes that never left me. I always was exploring. I was always into everything. I wasn't shy or bashful. I wanted to be friends with everyone. Which I'm still, I go into a room and I always want to find people. I want to find interesting people. I want to find dynamic people. And I'm just very curious. And that's how I was as soon as I entered this world. And I love that because you don't remember those things. It's great when you do have the people that were a little bit older that can share stories that maybe you don't necessarily remember. And then you're like, wow, I'm still that same little girl. But I was very compassionate, but I also stood my ground, which I feel like I'm still similar in that regard. And I always had an environmental conscious. So I was always outside. I was a tomboy, and that kind of segues into my role into the environmental engineering realm. I had a lot of male figures in my life that I looked up to and respected. And I had more male friends, actually. I just felt like I connected better with men. And I think that's why I got into the engineering realm, really. I felt like I could do this. I'm a female. I want to be in this world where, there's just that stigma with women. And I wanted to show other women that you could really do anything that you wanted, even if it was in a male-dominated industry. So it was a good probing question because I felt like, yeah, it's actually very similar to how I am now.
I love that. So you said you were always connected to the environment. Like how? What were some of the things that you did?
I love to be out. Yeah, I love to be outside. I actually grew up down in Southeast Florida, very close to the Everglades, and my dad's friend had a house out there. I was always going fishing with my dad, and I was always trying to save animals. I was always the one that was telling my parents to stop when there was a turtle crossing the road. And I just always just loved the environment, and I so respected nature, and I respected the environment, and I always felt really good just with my shoes off being outside, just playing in the outdoors. And, I just felt like at a really young age, I understood the importance of taking care of the environment. And when I saw people that weren't, it really frustrated me and it really upset me. And so I think that's kind of helped me find my path a little bit in terms of, okay, there's something that I can do about this. I can have a voice and I can make some changes and I can educate people around why it is important.
So I love that. And I think it's so great because how many years were you in the field of environmental engineer?
So 10 years. So I went to school for
A
5.
decade.
So 15 years.
Yeah.
It's scary to think because I'm still young. I still feel young.
Yeah. We're young.
Crazy to think though that it was almost a decade actually. I think I resigned actually just at my 10-year anniversary, which is also pretty pivotal.
So how was that? I mean, I can understand, having a sales background of the men that you are surrounded by a lot of times. And so how did you find it interesting, or any lessons and feedback that you were able to grasp from entering a field that is predominantly?
I think you really learn to have thick skin. I definitely am the type of individual that does not like to be taken advantage of, but I feel as though I was a lot more sensitive when I first entered the professional world. And I felt like I wasn't taken seriously because of my gender and because of my age, really. And so I had to prove myself. I felt like I had to work a lot harder. A lot of it could have also been that subconscious bias a little bit too, because I am an achiever and I do want to excel at everything that I do. I felt like I had to work twice as hard, but I did earn the respect of a lot of people in my field. And I did appreciate that. I did feel like I had a voice in the room. I feel like I had a seat at the table once I was able to have that confidence and show my capabilities.
Which it's interesting, right? Because you kind of touched on it. Like when we are able to shift our perspective, because our reality is what we make it. And with the achiever, doer, and you and I are very similar in this, go, do. I mean, if we can shift the perspective and just be like, I don't have anything to prove because I'm showing up, and that's proving in itself. That makes sense.
It's like stepping into who you already are and who you are continuing to want to become. But that's so true. Your perception is your reality, right? And so for me, I was always thinking, maybe they were taking me seriously, but I kind of walked into it already feeling that way. So who knows? I mean, I feel like, kind of when you go back, you wonder, would you have done things a little bit differently? I probably wouldn't have put so much pressure on myself and so much stress, which is part of the reason why I did get out of that career path.
All of us, right? Like, hey, little self.
Note to self.
No, lose the control. We don't have to have control over everything. So what was your 2x4? What was your moment? I mean, 15 years is a long time. You're living this life. You're doing all you can for the environment. What was it that was like, bam, I need to listen to my body? Because I think that's kind of what it was for you, right?
It was. And I had always felt I was always good at what I did in the engineering world. And I knew that I was working my way up, and I knew that I was, successful, and I was taken seriously, and I was given more autonomy in the profession, and I could see where that path was going, but I always second guessed myself. And that right there was a sign for me. And then I had struggled with health issues since I was about 15 years old. I had struggled with endocrine issues. And for many years, I felt as though, especially when you're at that age, you listen to your family, you listen to doctors. I mean, my mom was taking me to different endocrinologists and dermatologists and gynecologists. And at that time, there wasn't as much research and information available to everybody to understand really how to get to the root of some of these chronic systemic issues that a lot of people face and still do face. And I think I just was tired of being in and out of doctors' offices and being on medications. And what it really was is I got engaged. So, you know, the fact that my now husband, when I was really starting to get sick, I hit 30, my symptoms were coming back like full steam ahead. I wasn't feeling good. My skin was breaking out really bad. I lacked a lot of confidence. And as soon as I got engaged, I thought, I'm 30 years old. I'm about to have one of the most important days of my life. I have to take control of my body. I have to take control of my life. And I felt like I could do that. I finally felt like all of these people were taking my power away when I knew that I had it within me. I knew that if I took it upon myself to do the research and put in the work, that I would be able to heal myself. And that's exactly what I was able to do within 5 months, actually.
Do you want to talk about like what were some of your symptoms? So if there's anyone that can relate.
Oh man, just terrible, terrible periods, just terrible cramps, emotional roller coaster during different times of the month, during different times of ovulation in my cycle. I mean, just cystic acne all over, very lethargic, very exhausted. I had brain fog all the time. I just didn't feel motivated. I didn't feel confident. And then, of course, there's kind of depression and other things that kind of follow suit when you are lacking confidence and you are having those emotional imbalances. So it was kind of just this snowball effect where I knew I wasn't myself. And I knew that I had so much potential to really just step into who I want to be. And I felt like that was holding me back.
Yeah, that's a lot
Yeah.
going on. And I think a lot of people have that, but it's like, what step do I make to take control? I mean, like, what were some of the first steps? Because, you know, I think that's the pattern that you get in. And especially if you've been having this since 15, it's doctor after doctor, and they serve their purpose too. I mean, there's nothing to say that everyone has their purpose. But that you really had this urge within you. It was like this little flickering light of like, you can heal yourself. You can heal yourself.
I feel like with chronic disorders and illness, from what I've found from my own research and what I experienced myself, a lot of that is systemic and a lot of that is environmental, or it can be achieved by making changes in your environment and things that we have control over. And then in terms of Western medicine, obviously, if there's more like a catastrophic event or something like that, or if it's like a one-time event, I feel like that is where it really plays a role. But for me, I just felt like I had seen, dozens and dozens and dozens of doctors that were just masking my symptoms with medication and not listening to what I felt was the problem. I would ask to get lab panels done and they wouldn't do it, or I would have to beg, or to have to go to a different doctor. So for me, I got off all of my medication. And, you know, I had been on antibiotics on and off since I was 15 years old. I mean, some of the things that you know now that you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do to my body?
And your gut health with all of that. It's like you have to rebuild. It's like
rebuild everything.
Because our bodies are so smart. So, you know, cells are constantly turning, and it's like, okay, allow it the space. So, I mean, what was that? Talk about that process of, okay, I'm going to get off my medication. Like, I'm sure you had to wean off some of it.
I cold turkeyed it, but I don't know. I wouldn't tell. Yeah. So I guess we should preface this with, I am not a medical professional. I'm an individual who has a story. I did see a naturopath and a doctor of Oriental medicine in town. I'm not telling anybody to do that.
Absolutely. Well, yeah. And it's and I always say, have the multiple conversations you need to have with your healthcare professional.
Right.
Period. This is, it's your story and your path. Yeah.
Right. So for me, it felt like the right thing to do. I got off of everything and I immediately found a doctor of Oriental medicine in town in Sarasota. Her name's Christina Captain. She's a doctor of Oriental medicine, and she owns a space called the Family Healing Center. And she really helped me with everything from supplements to, you know, getting acupuncture and just doing the testing that was required for me to really figure out what was going on with my endocrine system, what food sensitivities did I had, and really just taking a look at everything that I was using on my body and in my home or in my body that could be contributing. And so it was a lot of work, but I was ready to put in the work. I mean, there was a lot of, okay, try this for 2 weeks. Now let's remove that. Okay, that's working. That's not. Because even when you start to really figure out what the problem is, everybody's body chemistry is different and everybody responds differently and has different sensitivities. And so really it just takes trial and error. And I feel
So
like we live in this.
it was a
Go
lot
ahead.
like kind of an elimination diet then for foods, and then probably the same way with skincare and those types of products.
Mm-hmm. And actually, my progesterone was so low when I did my testing that my DOM actually did suggest, she goes, okay, at that point, she knew I was getting married and she suggested that I potentially get on a hormone cream. And I told her I didn't want to do it. And I told her I felt like I could do it on my own. And I did, and I was able to, but she's like, just FYI, you're at the levels where you won't be able to carry a baby. So I think about how many women who struggle with infertility and miscarry and have no idea. I had no idea, you know? And so that was, I think, a huge turning point for me. But I wanted to do it on my own without medication, and I was able to. But I do think that there are cases out there where you will need sometimes hormone medication in order to get everything back in order.
So were you able, I mean, were you having to do blood tests like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
often? And how long did that take with the like elimination diet, would you say, before you really could feel some stuff turning around? Like you could feel like I'm right there. Okay, it's coming.
It's all kind of a blur because there was so many things happening, but within 5 months of switching everything, I was completely healed.
And by
And that
healed,
was
like healed means what for you? Because that's different for everybody. Everybody.
healed means skin clear, brain fog on, feeling my best self, actually going back and doing additional blood work to see where all of my levels were to make sure everything was back in order. So I had tangible evidence that, hey, here's where your levels were at before in terms of your endocrine system and your hormones, here where they're at now. And it was absolutely insane that I was able to do that without medication and really just changing everything in my environment. And so that's when I think I became really passionate about educating around the fact that we have so much more control than we think.
Engineer your life, girlfriend. Segue.
I love
So
it.
let's talk about skincare and the stuff we are putting on our body, because you and I found each other. The universe is so
I
amazing.
know.
And it's just like, it's a path that I've been on myself for 5 years now, probably, of like slow and steady process. And we talk about it all the time of like educating, knowledge is power. And we can only do, like, we do the best we can with what we're putting on our skin, because it goes so much beyond just food, which that could be a whole other conversation of food, what we're putting in. But like, hello to the toxins that we are not aware of in everyday products. I mean, wacky sauce. Like it's so irritating, and it's so hard to know what direction to go. So like, how'd this all evolve for you?
Well, first of all, I commend you because if you think about it, you've been doing this a lot longer. I mean, you really were at the head of the curve. Like I felt like I was at the head of the curve, but you have really, for 5 years, I'm impressed. Most people, I mean, usually it's like the 3-year mark or so that people are really starting to take a look.
I say that also to like, it's a slow and steady process.
It
And
is.
I say that because that's exactly what it is. It's a process. And I just so want people to know, like, don't be overwhelmed. Like, I took it one thing at a time. So first initially it was
Absolutely.
food, and then it was my like skincare line, like moisturizer. Just start with one. Like I started with just one thing, and now it's evolved to like household items as well. But it took me, that's why I say it's like it can take a long time. Don't be overwhelmed.
Yeah, for my case, so mine was my wedding. Like I had a timeline, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I've got a year to make this right. And so I literally threw everything away to the point where my fiance at the time was like about to divorce me before he even married me because I threw all his stuff too. He goes,
No, yeah, right.
no, he goes, you can throw everything away, but you need to replace it. And I told him I was working on it because I hadn't researched everything yet. But that is 100% true, Jill. That is what I recommend. What I tell people is as soon as you're running out of maybe that product that you've used for the last 30 years that you never even thought about, never even looked at the ingredient deck to even wonder what was going on there, maybe do a little bit of research. There's an app called the Environmental Working Group's Healthy Living app. There's a Skin Deep database.
Is it EWG when you go to look it up?
It's EWG Healthy Living. It's got a green and white E, and they really do a lot of the homework for you. It's a great starting point. There's a barcode scanner. You can scan by product or ingredient, and they basically provide you a rating system based on various toxicities. And again, this is all about progress, not perfection. So it's about just getting, becoming a little bit more aware, just like food, right? We've seen it in the food industry. I know when I was making changes, it's been over 10 years since I started making some food changes, and I've seen that industry shift so much. But at the time when that really didn't exist and you had to do all of the homework yourself, imagine how difficult it was, and now how easy it is when you go shopping. You know your brands, you know your foods, you know exactly what to look for, and it's very quick. The same thing happens with the personal care industry. You just become more aware slowly but surely. So that is 100% what I recommend. It's not meant to be daunting. It's meant to just be empowering, and for you to be like, no, as a consumer, I have a lot of power, and I'm making a choice to not buy that, because what happens is companies reformulate when they realize that consumers as a mass are stopping buying specific products. And that's why you're starting to see paraben free and fragrance free and phthalate free on a lot of products. And you'll start to see that more and more, because companies know that consumers in the US particularly are starting to ask those tough questions.
Yeah. And so the app is so easy to use too. It's
so
like you
easy.
scan it and then you can read it all. So what brought you to, in lieu, drum roll, Beautycounter? Love it. I love that. I just love it. Well, due to the samples, because I tried and I'm still in the process, because it's a process.
Absolutely.
There's just some really great, and you feel good about using it. Like I can trust it. So then you feel good. And I think that's something to be said too. When you feel good and you fully and trust in what you're using, it's the same with food. Your cells, it all takes it differently.
Yeah, I was just doing an Instagram post before we jumped on here, and I sometimes post quotes, and I posted "Eat like you love yourself," right? It's the same thing, right? As soon as you start to nourish your body in those ways, you really start to feel that, and your body starts to feel it, your mind feels it, physically you feel it, and you just all of a sudden are like, wow, I feel so vibrant, I feel so great, my skin looks great, everybody says I have so much energy, and it all just kind of happens all at once.
Yeah.
So how did I find Beautycounter? Beautycounter found me at a time when I was when I started to make switches, there was a lot of influencers that I had already followed, a lot of food bloggers, a lot of functional medicine doctors and things like that. I was doing a lot of research. And so I started following a lot of public figures in that realm. And all of a sudden I kept seeing Beautycounter pop up. And I had tried a lot of different brands. And I just remember being in the middle of the summer and trying one specific foundation brand that I won't disclose. And the makeup was just running off of my face in the middle of the hot summer. And, it was just too much work. It wasn't effective. Yes, it was safe, but I felt like it wasn't performing. And so then I'm thinking, I'm just not going to wear anything at all. So I went through a phase where I'm like, if none of these products are going to make me feel like a woman and make me feel beautiful and actually work, what is the point of spending the money on them? I might as well just not wear it. And that's where I feel like Beautycounter marries the two together. So you get these chic, on-trend, high-performing products that work and they're effective and they keep up with all of the awesome things that are coming out in the industry, but you also know that you're not compromising your health in the name of beauty. Which is really important. And you never think about those things, right? But your skin is your largest organ. And it's so interesting that you talk about food, because our food is actually meant to metabolize things, right? Like that is what our organs do when we ingest things. What you put on your skin goes right into your bloodstream within seconds. And I think that's something a lot of people don't think about. So I kept seeing Beautycounter and I said, all right, I got to try this. These influencers that I trust in the health and wellness realm, they keep vetting it, and tried 3 products, which was actually the charcoal bar, the cleansing balm, and a foundation, because those were my
The balm
staples.
is bomb.
I thought if I could wash my face, use the balm as kind of a multitasker product to remove makeup and to use it as a moisturizer at night, and then I could have the foundation just to get me through the day, I'd go from there. Fell in love immediately, signed up the next month really for the discount because I joined out of desperation, and I had already thrown away so many other products that I decided, hey, why not? I love the products. They seem to work. I know they're safe. Why not get a discount? And then as I started to learn more about the lack of regulation in the industry, the more I started to understand just how powerful of a company Beautycounter is in terms of changing the legislation and educating people first and foremost. That's when it really felt right. It felt like this company found me, and there was a reason why all of this is happening so that I could be a voice for change for this movement.
And you're such a good voice. You're so powerful.
Oh, thank you.
I would love to go back to and like sit on a little bit more. And if we need to offer a moment of silence,
Okay.
what you put on your skin is immediately absorbed into your bloodstream. Like, let that sink in, because that's not discussed at all. It's really discussed in the food industry, and people know that obviously because you bring it in, it has to go through your intestinal, your gut and all of the stuff that happens. The same is true with makeup. And I just think that there should be a bigger tagline for that because it's powerful.
Yeah, and I can throw out some crazy statistics. I think with my environmental engineering background, I already knew a lot about industrial chemicals that were introduced into commerce year after year. And when you really start to think about, so the last year that any major federal law has been passed governing our skincare and cosmetics, so that is all personal care products, was 1938. So that is Hitler era, World War II. Okay. And so when you really, and I like to use that image because look at where the world was at that time, look at where our country was at that time, and look at how much our country has changed in those 80 years. A lot has changed. And the fact that we are so dangerously behind other countries in terms of regulation is just ridiculous. And it's because, well, it's corporate greed, but it's because as consumers, we really don't know. And now research is starting to kind of come out more and more. And so there's been 80,000 industrial chemicals introduced into commerce since 1938. And 90% of them have never been tested for safety before even being marketed or put on shelves. So, what I always like to tell people is, you think of the leaping bunny and you think of, people want to make sure there's no animal testing. Well, we're being tested more than anybody else right now because there's so many products with these ingredients and we have no idea what they're doing to our body, and let alone the environment as well. So that is why I feel like even just having a conversation person to person, that's what Beautycounter allows me to do. It allows me to be aligned with this huge company that already is in this industry and people are starting to become more aware. It allows me to be a voice instead of just being one person. I'm a part of this huge movement that's spreading like wildfire, right? It's like our story is best told person to person. And if I can capture people that are listening to this right now that maybe when they just run out of their mascara, they're like, man, Lindsay and Jill, they had something to say. I'm going to make a switch. And it doesn't need to be Beautycounter. Like, we want there to be legislative change. And I've met with Congress a couple of times, and every single time they scratch their head and they're like, you're bringing more competition to yourself. You recognize that, right? And we say, heck yes, we want there to be options. We want there to be flexibility, and we want people to be able to go to Target or Walmart or shop online or on Amazon and be able to say, okay, that's a better price point. Okay, I think that'll work for me. One of my best friends uses that and I really like it. That's how it should be.
Absolutely. And that is how it should be. And that's why I love having conversations with you, because Beautycounter is amazing. Everything they offer you can trust, but there are some other brands out there.
Absolutely.
And we might have a secondary conversation, maybe a live or something to offer. Like, I know we've talked about my routine, so that might be coming for all of you interested, but it's time. This is an absolute segment that it's time for there to be changes. And
I've read articles, and sorry to interrupt, but I've read articles about banning smoking on airplanes. 80 years. Women have to have the right to vote. decades, 50 years. I mean, when you think about movements and you're like, wow, I cannot believe they allowed people to smoke on airplanes. Well, guess what it took? It took a mobilized group of people to make that happen. You know, same thing with seatbelts, requiring seatbelts in cars. I mean, so many things in our country started with a group, started with an organization, started with people not taking no for an answer and spreading it like wildfire. And then that's when legislation started to say, okay, we need to listen to our constituents here. This is a big deal. So I think, especially segueing into Memorial Day weekend, I think people don't recognize how much power we do have and just how fortunate we are to live in a country like this where we can make that happen, where we have the freedom to be able to express our concerns about our health and just future generations.
Yeah, totally. So I know there's this never list, right? Is it the never list?
It is. And I don't know if, can you share links?
Yeah.
Could you share, because I could post the PDF or I could share a link to our never list. I think it's a great resource for people.
I have it here. I keep it on my desk.
Oh, that makes me happy.
I got it from you. Yeah. But so is there, what was if there are like top 3, if people can just grab like an easy, not all of them are easy to pronounce, FYI, but something to look for, you know, if, okay, I want to make this change. Maybe you don't have the app yet.
Love it. Initially, you said I could only talk about one, but now you're giving me 3, so I'm excited. So I would say the
top 5. I like 5. It's like a high 5 of knowledge. Get it? Do you like?
You know what else I will share, which I don't have it immediately at my disposal, but I have the top 8 worst offenders. And again, it's just a PDF and it gives a little bit more information. And so it's like, if you just want to start small, that's a great place to start. Because again, Beautycounter bans 1,500 ingredients from our products right now. The European Union bans 1,400. And so we recognize, I don't know all of those 1,500, right? You know, I will never know. And as more ingredients are banned and as more ingredients come out, you know, it's not meant, we're not all meant to be experts, which is why we need the government to do their part and to step in so that we shouldn't have to research everything. So I would say first and foremost, fragrance is probably one that most people would never even think about. And the reason why is it's a proprietary term that allowed companies to not have to disclose their trade secrets. And of course, since there's been no regulation federally that has changed that since that's come into play, companies are hiding ingredients in there. And I actually just read an article. There's 4,000 chemicals used to scent products right now. So what that means is there's 4,000 ingredients that are now being hidden in that one term. And so there's a lot of loopholes. There's a lack of transparency. You really don't know what you're getting. And so when you see that one word fragrance, there can be thousands of chemicals, up to 4,000 chemicals hidden in that one word. So please remove fragrance. There are so many other botanically derived scents that companies can use, and they smell so much better. I get so many compliments, way more now than I ever did. Go ahead, Jill. I know you want to say something.
And to that point, I just think when you get on this path and you start making these transitions, when something has fragrance, my body reacts like I will get a headache. It's not a pleasant, because it's not natural. Your body's not supposed to, but it's been so introduced to it. It's like it can't even operate to its full optimization because it's been bogged.
Yeah, I can't step into Bed Bath & Beyond anymore without getting a raging headache. So now that I've removed it from my life, it's whenever I smell a strong scent, I have a very difficult time. Oh my gosh. And I do want to plug the movie Stink. It's a documentary on Netflix. It's all about synthetic fragrance. And it's a documentary that it's this gentleman who, he lost his wife to cancer. Again, very healthy, very active. He lost his wife to cancer, had 2 young girls, and really started to understand a lot of the environmental toxins in this world. And Justice Clothing, they've had a couple of lawsuits and things like that recently in terms of asbestos in their makeup. But basically there were flame retardants that were put on the clothes that he purchased for his daughters in this documentary, and he could not get a clear answer. You know, brought it all the way up to the CEO, and he was able to do third-party testing and find out that there was a whole slew of toxic chemicals that were on these children's clothing. And so it's really eye-opening. You can follow the Stink documentary on Facebook, and they're always posting new medical journal publications that come out. So it's, again, just being in the know and becoming more aware. So fragrance is a huge one. If you can eliminate that, you're already, I think you're a third of the way through the battle. Yeah. Next would be parabens. That was a big one for me. Again,
they are everywhere.
And when I say everywhere, I would say probably about 85% of products that you'll find in a consumer store in terms of personal care products contain parabens, because it's the most commonly used preservative. So of course, companies want to keep products on shelves longer, and it's the cheapest ingredient to make that happen. Unfortunately, it has properties that mimic estrogen in the body, and they've found, parabens along with BPA in breast cancer tumors. I think like 95% of breast cancer tumors. So, the evidence is there to show that you want to make sure that there are other options in terms of how to preserve products. Not every product needs preservation, of course, but make sure that you avoid parabens. And then lastly, I think I want to go with oxybenzone. Today is actually National Sunscreen Day.
Yay! Okay. And it's like summer's here.
Summer's here.
Yes, this is a good one. Thank you.
I would say oxybenzone is now banned in Hawaii and in Key West. And the reason why they started to ban it in Hawaii was actually because it was killing the coral reef. So it was affecting their tourism. And then as they did more testing, they found that it's a known carcinogen. So it has cancer-causing properties. So the FTA actually finally just came out with literature that basically is deeming mineral sunscreen safe, and they're basically not calling chemical sunscreens unsafe yet, but they're basically like, we're doing more research because there's research that indicates that it is harmful to human health and the environment. So you want to make sure that you go with a physical sunscreen, which is either going to be zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. And EWG, I just got an email today. You can even sign up for their email list. I think they just said they verified 300 new sunscreens. So let me see if I have it in front of me. But basically, there's just so many companies out there that are formulating safer, again, because now the public is asking for safer options. So definitely go with physical sunscreen over chemical. Those are my 3.
Yay. You can add 2 more if you want, because then it's a high 5. Remember.
Yes, I would say phthalates is probably another one. And what phthalates do is they basically change like the plasticity of products, and they allow products to become more viscous. So you'll find it in a lot of lotions and shampoos and things like that. And that's also a known endocrine disruptor. What do I want my last one to be? I would also say Trisoclan, which is found in a lot of deodorant. So a lot of times people just want to go aluminum-free deodorant. People are, recognizing that
that's a good one.
Antiperspirant free, but there's also a lot of other nasty toxins in deodorants, and Trisoclan is another. So those are my 5. Let me see if I can get them in order. Fragrance, parabens, oxybenzo, phthalates, and Trisoclan.
Yay. Such good info.
Yeah. And I was never an expert in this. Even in the field that I was in, I did water quality testing and stuff. I had a high level, but again, it's just because I became passionate and I research. You can research anything. We have everything at our fingertips right now for free. All of this information is free. And just like riding a bike, you just start to learn over time.
Yeah. It's amazing because I've seen on your feeds, on your social, like you posted before and afters, like not even really knowing that this would be your path, but it's so powerful. And it's just like the self-confidence that you give back, through helping men and women find healthy face, like skincare products, like super powerful.
I think it's all about accentuating the features that God gave you, that you were put on this earth to be. And I think so many times we try to be something we're not, and we think we need to look a certain way. There's a reason why there's only one of you. And I love that I'm able to now help women and men feel confident in the products that they're using. And especially when a woman reaches out to me and says, oh my gosh, I left my house today and I didn't have to put on any makeup and I got so many compliments, like that is enough for me. just to keep going, because it's so powerful when you recognize your beauty, and it's so much bigger than surface. And when you just have that confidence to be who you are, people appreciate that. And it, that spreads like wildfire, that people feel that.
Yeah. I love it. So if we were to go back to loop back to little girl Lindsay, if there's advice that you could give yourself, what would you say to her?
I would say, don't ever let anyone take your power away. Follow your gut and your intuition, because I feel like I would have probably made some changes. And again, of course, there was a reason why I ended up here and it took as long as it did. But I was doing things, especially in the engineering realm, when I knew I wasn't 100% happy and I wasn't 100% healthy. I was doing things because I thought that's what I was expected to do. I went to college and I thought I needed to get married and I needed to have a good job and I needed to make sure that I was independent. And it's all these things where you follow this
societal fake standards.
Right. So it's like, as a child, right? It's like you want to stay who you are before society gets its hands on you, because that's why you see a child that's in the middle of a concert just dancing without a care in the world, right? It's so much more difficult for adults to do that because they think there's so much judgment. So just be who you are and do what's best for you by following your gut, because nobody cares more about your life than you do. And people are going to have their opinions. And it's your life, not theirs.
Ugh, that's good stuff. It is your life, girl, and you took full, grabbed it by the wheel and said bye to your old life. It's just so powerful. I'm so happy to have you in my life.
God, it feels really good. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm sure this won't be the last time we'll do one of these segments.
No. So what's up? How could people, they're interested in Beautycounter, they're interested in following you, they want more deets.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll include everything in the comments.
Yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I was telling somebody the other day, I even have a lot of moms reach out to me about things, products for their kids, or if their kids, experience some sort of skin condition, or even if they're sick. I've come into contact with so many amazing resources and products and services. And so please reach out if you're like, okay, I've been dealing with this for so long and I feel like I can do better. I feel like you would be able to help me. Please reach out. But you can find me on Instagram. Living Well by Lindsay, LINDSAY is my handle. That is my brand, livingwellbylindsay.com. And then you can also email me at Beautycounter at livingwellbylindsay.com as well. And Jill will put the contact information on there, and I'm happy to help answer any questions, because I do recognize that it can be a little bit overwhelming and daunting, and anything that we can do to help steer you in the right direction, I am happy to do.
It is overwhelming. Trust and believe. And Lindsay is such a sweet, sweet soul that she will guide you, and it might not be Beautycounter. And again, that's why I just love you so much, because she will listen to your needs, what you have going on, and offer the best advice and direction with product.
Yeah, I always try to offer 3. I understand price point. Again, like there's so many things that come into play, and in the end, we're all just trying to do the same thing. So
yeah. Such good stuff today. I really appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll follow up with like a live on my face routine.
I would love that, especially because you are so much more in the know than I feel like so many others. Like I would love to have a raw, authentic, like what are you legitimately using on a daily basis, and see what it looks like, because you may surprise yourself in a good way, and you may be able like, okay, maybe next time I can find something a little cleaner.
Or I get a change. I get to add some more change, because it's a wave. Like it's the wave of life.
Yes.
Makeup and skincare.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thanks so much, you guys. You can find all of her info in the comments, and then we'll be sure to upload the never to use top 8 products as well, PDFs for your reference. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.